Okay, so today we'll be discussing our fourth topic for financial management, and this is the time value of money. So, after our discussions, we should be able to discuss the role of time value in finance, the use of computational tools, and the basic patterns of cash flow. To understand the concept of future value and present value, their calculations for single amounts, and the relationship between them. To be able to find the future and the present value of both the annuity and an annuity due, and find the present value of a perpetuity. To be able to calculate both the future value and the present value of a mixed stream of cash flows. To understand the effect that compounding interest more frequently than annually has on future value and on the effective annual rate of interest. And lastly, to describe the procedures involved in determining deposits needed to accumulate a future sum, a loan amortization, and finding interest or growth rate, and lastly, finding an unknown number of periods. Okay, so, uh, to begin our discussion, let us discuss what is time value of money. Okay, so, as the name suggests, time value of money is determining the value of money at a certain point in time. Okay, so uh, uh, money today and its value in the future, hindi sila magkapareho. Right? It increases over time. Okay, so for example, kapag meron tayong 50,000, tapos i-deposit natin siya sa bangko, after a few years, that amount will increase, right? So, just from that, that is an effect of the time value of money. Yung sabi dito, time value of money is the idea that money is available at present time at the present time is worth more than the same amount in the future. Okay, due to its potential earning capacity. This core principle of finance holds that provided money can earn interest, any amount of money which is worth more, the sooner it is received. One of the most fundamental concepts in finance is that money has a time value attached to it. In simple terms, it would be safe to say that a dollar was worth more yesterday than today, and a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. Okay, so that is the time value of money. It just states na as time goes by, the value of certain money differentiates. Okay, so yung 100 peso noon, noong 1990, is not worth the same as 100 pesos right now in 2020. Okay, so that is an effect of the time value. So the time value involves two major concepts. First is the future value and the present value. Okay, so both concepts consider three factors. First is the principal, next is the interest rate, and lastly is yung time period, syempre. Okay, so to give a brief understanding, ang present value answers if we want X, if we want if we want X, how much should we invest today? While future value answers if we invest X today, how much will we have in the future? Okay, so kapag present value, an example of this is uh, kung gusto nating magkaroon ng 100,000 in 5 years, how much should we invest today? Right? So yung i-invest natin today in order to get the 100,000 in the future, that is the present value. Okay? Kasi nga, what we are investing today at the present to get 100,000 in the future. Okay? While yung future value naman, ang example nito is, if we invest 100,000 today, how much will we have in 5 years? Okay? So, we are asking the value of yung 100,000 in 5 years. So, that 5 years is in the future. Hence, future value. Okay, so that is a brief example of the present value and the future value. So let's discuss yung mga interest. So we have two ways of earning interest, or two kinds of interest. We have the simple and the compounding or compound. Simple interest means only the principal earns interest. So walang yung principal lang or yung original amount, yun lang yung yung mag-earn ng interest. While compound is pati interest is nag-earn din ng interest. So interest also earns interest, which is stated here. Okay? Yung simple interest, we can simply compute for the interest by just multiplying the principal or yung original amount multiplied by the interest rate. Okay? While yung compound interest is much more complicated. Interest is computed using the carrying amount multiplied by the interest. So yung carrying amount, that is the original amount or the principal plus the interest earned. Okay? So the principal plus the interest earned, that constitutes the carrying amount. So yung carrying amount kasama na dito ang interest na na-earn natin. So that interest na earn natin should also be multiplied by the interest rate kasi nga ang interest na yon also earns interest. Okay, so both of them may be the same, the principal never change. Okay, yung principal, again, yung original amount, but the carrying amount changes over time. Kasi nga, the carrying amount is, it increases while we earn interest. Okay? Of course, yung carrying amount, the carrying amount also decreases while if we pay for the let's say yung utang natin, right? So kung may utang tayo, kapag binayaran natin, syempre magdi-decrease ang amount na babayaran natin. So the carrying amount also decreases. So payment should be deducted. Okay? So an example, ABC Corporation deposits 10,000 in a bank at 10% interest per annum. Okay, take note of the interest rate. How much will the investment be after 2 years using a simple interest and compound interest? Okay, so let's take a look at the difference. Kapag simple interest lang, we just simply multiply the principal with the interest rate. So the principal is yung original amount, which is yung 10,000. Okay? So 10,000 times 10%, which is 1,000. So yung 1,000 na yun, which is here, this is the interest for year 1. Kasi nga 10% per annum ito. So the carrying amount after year 1 under the simple interest method is 11,000, computed as the principal plus yung 1,000 na interest. Tapos after year 2, we will compute for the interest using the same method as year 1. We just simply multiply the the principal with the interest rate. So yung principal is yung 10,000 times yung interest rate of 10%. So interest again is 1,000. Take note na yung interest for year 2 is the same as the interest in year 1, right? So 11,000 times the interest for year 2, the carrying amount now for year 2 is 12,000. So ito na yung pera natin after 2 years. Kapag nung nag-invest tayo ng 10,000 sa isang bangko. Under the compound interest naman, okay, under the compound, under the first year, in the first year of operation, parehas lang sila ng simple interest. Kasi nga, under year 1, the carrying amount of the investment is the same as the principal. Kasi nga, wala pa tayong interest under year 1. So, 10,000 plus yung interest, which is computed as 10,000, yung carrying amount, which is 10,000 muna kasi wala pa tayong na-earn na interest. times the interest rate, which is 10,000, ay 10%. So 10,000 times 10%, which is 1,000 na interest. We add both the principal and the interest to get the carrying amount after year 1, which is 11,000. Under year 2 naman, mag-iiba ng interest natin. Kasi nga, nag-increase ang carrying amount based on the interest earned, right? So the carrying amount now of the investment is 11,000, which we computed under year 1. So 11,000 times the interest rate of 10%, the the interest, which is now 1,100. So we add them to get the carrying amount under year 2, which is 12,100. So under the compound interest, interest every year is different, right? So tingnan nyo to, yung interest under year 1 is not the same as the interest in year 2, right? It increases based on the carrying amount. Pero syempre, the interest can also be decreased depending on the withdrawals, right? So, example, kung nag-withdraw tayo, syempre ang mababawasan ang carrying amount, right? So, if we withdraw, the carrying amount decreases, hence the interest also decreases. So, it just depends on the carrying amount under the compound interest. Okay, so, next is we have the periods of compounding. Interest may be compounded monthly, okay, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. Interest is not equal for different compounding interest. Okay, so when an interest is compounded to another period other than annually, the n is multiplied by the number of periods. Okay, so the number of periods is yung 2 for semi-annually kasi nga twice a year, 4 for quarterly kasi nga 4 times a year, and 12 for monthly kasi 12 times a year. While I is divided by the number of periods. So the n now is the periods or the times na nag-earn tayo ng interest, while the I is yung interest rate. Okay, so using the example, same example, yung ABC na nag-deposit sa bank for 10,000 at 10% interest. Under the simple interest, okay, ang difference lang nito is first is yung simple interest muna, right? The same lang din as kanina. While the compounded is yearly now and semi-annually. So magkaiba na ang interest ay ang periods of compounding natin under the compounded interest method. Under the interest ay simple interest, parehas lang din sila ng carrying amount, which is kahit kasi simple interest to. It should be compound also, right? Compound din ito. Okay, so letter A is yung annually, while yung letter B naman is your semi-annually. Okay? So under the annually, parehas lang din sila ng last some example, which is 12,100 ang carrying amount after year 2. Right? Pero kung semi-annually na siya, mas maraming instance na nag-earn tayo ng interest. Okay, so twice a year na tayo nag-earn ng interest kasi nga semi-annual tayo. Semi-annual meaning twice a year. Okay, so first is under period 1, which is the first half a year, for 6 months, we have the principal of 10,000 multiplied by the interest. Yung interest under period 1 It's computed using the carrying amount, which is the same as the principal for period 1, which is 10,000, multiplied by the interest rate. Yung interest rate now, kasi nga 10% annually, di ba? Yung terms. Pero since we are now earning interest semi-annually, we should divide the interest rate by the number of periods. In this case is 2. So, 10% divided by 2 periods, we now have 5%. Okay, kasi nga, stated here, I is divided by the number of periods. Okay? So, so now, so under period 1 now, the carrying amount is 10,500. So, 10,500 ang carrying amount ng investment natin after 6 months. So, for the next 6 months again, we will now compute for the interest using the carrying amount. So, the interest now is use the carrying amount of 10,500 multiplied again by 5% to get 525 na interest for period 2. So, after the first year, kasi take note nga, this is yung period 1 and period 2 all happened in the same year. So, under the first year, we are now, the carrying amount now is 11,025. Okay, so compute for the interest under period 3 and 4. So 1125 times 5%, 551. We add it to the carrying amount for the previous period to get the carrying amount for under period 3 of 11,576. Next, we compute for the interest under period 4, 11,576 times 5% to get 579. Add it to get the carrying amount under period 4, 12,155. So as you can see, the carrying amount under the under the annually is different from the carrying amount under semi-annually. So yung kapag semi-annually, mas malaki ang carrying amount kasi nga we earn interest more frequently, hence that we also mas lalaki ang investment natin kasi nga that interest also earns interest. Okay? So, notice that we have now four periods. Okay? So, itong 4 periods na to, just simply computed using the years or years of 2 years, which is now the N. Yung 2 years is the N. Okay? Ito yung N, yung 2 years. Tapos multiplied by the number of periods. So, yung periods na to is 2 for semi-annually. So, 2 years times 2, which now we have 4. So, 4 now ang period nito. That is the amount which we earn interest. Now, we will now be computing for the effective interest. Diba minention ko kanina na mas malaki ang carrying amount dito kesa sa annually? Mas malaki ang carrying amount sa semi-annually kesa sa annually. Right? So it means that we earn more interest under semi-annually kesa sa annually. Okay? So, in effect, right, parang mas malaki na ang interest rate sa semi-annually kesa sa annually. Right? Kasi nga under semi-annually, 2,155 ang na-earn natin, while the under annually, 2,100 ang na-earn natin. So, we can explain this as the effective interest, meaning yung parang what is the true interest, hindi lang based sa sinabi dito na 10%, which is ano ba talaga yung effective na interest ng isang investment to get this same carrying amount, right? So the effective interest of semi-annually is higher than the effective interest of the annually. Okay, so that is what we are now computing for today, for this for this, yung effective interest. So, the same rate compounded at different periods have different effective interest rate. As mentioned, mas malaki ang semi-annually kaysa sa annually. Tapos, mas malaki syempre ang quarterly kaysa sa semi-annually and annually. And so on and so forth. So, effective interest is the actual interest rate for a single year. Okay, so, ano ba talaga ang actual na rate natin na na-earn natin if we compute it just for a single year? Okay, so effective interest is computed using 1 plus I, which is the interest rate, time raised to n, which is now the number of years, less 1. Okay, so under an example, okay, under this example, company invests 12% interest compounded for 2 years. Compute for the effective interest under annually, semi-annually, quarterly, and monthly. Okay, so under annually, okay, we will be using this this formula, remember. So 1 plus the interest rate of 12%, so 1.12 raised to the number of years, which is ano pala to? The periods pala. The period, which is 1 for annually, 2 for semi-annually, 4 for quarterly, and 12 for monthly. Okay, sorry for that. So, raised to n, which is the number of periods, which is 1 under the annual, minus 1. Okay, so if we compute it, 1.12 raised to 1, of course, is just 1.12, minus 1 is just 0.12, so or 12%. So the effective interest of 12% compounded annually is of course 12%. Kasi nga, we are computing for the actual interest rate for a single year. Siyempre, single year din ang annually. So there is no difference. While yung semi-annually naman, 1 plus your interest rate. Remember na yung interest rate is divided by the number of periods, right? So, katulad din dito, na yung 10% is dinivide natin by 2. Under this, we should also divide it depending on the period. So, dahil 12% under semi-annually divided by 2, we have now 6%. 1.06 raised to the number of periods, which is now 2, kasi semi-annually, minus 1. Okay, so if we compute it, if we use the calculator and we compute for it, we will get 0.1236 or 12.36%. Notice that the effective interest under semi-annually is higher than the annually. Next is under the quarterly. So yung 12% naman, i-divide natin with 4. So 1 plus 0.03, kasi 12 divided by 4 is 3%. Raised to the number of periods, so quarterly tayo. So it is 4 times a year, so 4 minus 1. We'll now get 5.1255 or 12.55%. Tapang yung monthly naman, 1 plus 0.01, kasi 12% divided by the number of periods. So dahil monthly, 12 ito. So 12% divided by 12 is equal to 1% or 0.01. So 1 plus 0.01 raised to the number of periods, which is 12, less 1, now get 0.1268 or 12.68%. So notice that monthly is higher than quarterly, and quarterly is higher than semi-annually, and semi-annually is higher than annually. Kasi nga, under monthly, mas frequent tayo nag-earn ng interest compared sa quarterly, semi-annually, and annually. So, dahil mas frequent tayo nag-earn ng interest, that interest also earns interest. Hence, we are earning more interest. Right? So, interest tayo ng interest. So in effect, parang mas malaki na ang interest nito, hence a higher effective interest. Okay? So basically, ang effective interest is yung amount of interest na we would get to get the carrying amount for at the end of the year. Kung gagamitin lang natin ito or kung i-compute lang natin ito once, right? So for example, let's compute for the effective interest under the first example natin kanina. Yung nag-deposit ng 10,000 at 10% per annum. And we will now be comparing the effective interest of the semi-annually and the annually. Okay? Of course, under annually, parehas lang ang effective interest and their stated interest or sometimes known as the nominal interest. So, ang 10% is the nominal interest. Okay, so, ang effective interest ng under annually is just 10% kasi parehas lang sila. So, under naman semi-annually, we will now be computing for it. So, 1 plus 0.05 kasi nga 10% divided by 2 kasi semi-annually. So, 1 plus 0.05 raised is equal to 1.05, right? So, raised to the number of periods, which is in this case, dahil semi-annually, 2. So, raised to 2, 1.05 raised to 2. Now, get 1.1025. So, 1.1025 less 1, you now get the effective interest for this specific investment of 10% ay 10.25%. So what does that mean, 10.25% na effective interest? It means that at the end of 1 year, ang makukuha nating carrying amount is the same as if we are investing it at 10.25% annually. Okay? So, kapag kinumpute natin ito, yung 10,000 computed as invested at 10.25% annually. So, 10,000 times 10.25 annually, we now get the interest of 1,025. Okay? So, 1,025 ang interest natin annually under 10.25%. So, 1,025 plus 10,000, makukuha natin ang carrying amount na 11,025. Pansin nyo na yung 11,025 is parehas lang ng carrying amount under 10% compounded semi-annually. Okay, so that is yung effective interest. Ito yung amount of interest na makukuha natin, kaya amount of carrying amount na makukuha natin, assuming na ganun ang i-invest natin for annually. Right, so in this case, 10.25. Okay, so 30 minutes ng video. That will be all for today. Next meeting, we will be computing for the future and present value na. Okay. So, okay. Yun lang. That will be all. Goodbye.